sugarcoat, life's already a bumpy road. Too much shelter causes pain. Let's just be real honest. Things are gonna knock you down. Avoidance will not help you out. Let's talk it through here. Keep it real honest. Hi, and welcome to Real Honest, the podcast where I share candid thoughts and feelings about life, love, and relationships, God and church, adulting, the workplace, and everything in between. I am your host, Samantha Labatt, and you may not always like me, but I'll always be honest with you. I am still sad. Shocker. I feel like I'm always sad. But so I thought what I would do today is just kind of talk through how I have come to notice over the years of being a person that struggles with depression, what it looks like and what it feels like when a depressive episode is coming on, so that hopefully if any of you go through the same thing and like you notice the same types of things going on in your life, it could be helpful. And if you are not a person who struggles with depression, then I'm hoping that what you can take away from this is a better understanding of friends or family members that do. I just finished the part of Grey's Anatomy where Jo has her depressive episode in season 15, and I honestly really didn't like it. It bothered me a lot, and I just felt like this is not an accurate depiction of this. This is not a good depiction of this. I felt like it was good and accurate in the sense of when she was like in the depths of the depression and like the height of the episode, but it felt like it totally came out of nowhere, and the trigger in relation to other traumas that she had suffered in her life didn't seem like enough to send her there. So I guess I should also mention, I mean, you guys know this if you're listening to this and you have any idea who I am, but I'm clearly not a therapist or a doctor or any professional anything. I'm just a girl. So obviously this is not to diagnose or treat anyone. But I think the other thing that I was thinking watching that episode of Grey's was that, you know, maybe this is real life for somebody, and it's just that it's not real life for me. Part of what is so awkward about depression for me is that mine does not manifest dramatically. So I feel like people so often expect it to manifest dramatically. I think, hate to mention him all the time, but going back to that man that I loved last summer, who was on drugs, I think like one of the conversations that we used to have is he would say like, you're kind of too down to like watch me go on a bender. Like, it's awesome that you're gonna like come along for the ride while I go to my dealer and like chill out at my house while I'm maybe dying, maybe not dying, like who really knows? But that's not always what I need. Like I need someone who's going to be like, hey, stop doing that. And I was very like, A, I'm not your mom. Like, you're an adult. You know how to make decisions. You do whatever you do. But also, B, if I take the drugs and the alcohol from you, what is to stop you from just going to get more? Like, I cannot overpower you. I am a small girl. Like, sure, I can take your car keys. You have Uber. Like, it's just like, you know, but I think also, aside from that argument, I was truly not aware how bad it was because I don't have any drug addicts in my life. I don't like spend time with alcoholics. Nobody in my immediate family that I spent time with had any type of addiction issue. So like all of my knowledge of substance abuse came from what I saw on TV and books that I read. And it was always really dramatic. Like, you know, you just see people like shooting up heroin and immediately dying. Like, So because he was so high functioning and like went to work every day and made it to his meetings and like smelled nice and looked nice and was carrying coherent conversations, I honestly thought he was joking for probably like the first, I don't know, it was, I think it was months, like many months that after he first mentioned that he was an alcoholic, I literally thought it was a joke. And then when he like told me like what drugs he was doing, I was like, what? Like, is this a movie? This is not real life. This cannot be real life. Like, it absolutely cannot. And then I think even like when I was hanging out with him, like I could never tell if he was sober or not because he really didn't act different. I could tell when he was detoxing. Like I was like, all right, so I know that you were like going downhill now. But that was pretty much it. And it was like, he would have to tell me like how he was feeling, like, but I really didn't spend enough time with him to pick it up. But even for him to say, like, I mean, even if I go like less dramatic, but I mean, like, I didn't drink until it was legal in college. And, I'm in college, all these people that have been drinking since high school. And so I had a lot of friends who had really high alcohol tolerances, and I could not tell when they were drunk and when they weren't, unless they were to the point that they were blacking out. Like if they're slurring their words and puking and falling over, I was like, yeah, that person's drunk. Right? But if they were just sitting there having a casual conversation and their face wasn't shiny and they weren't sweating, I was like, they could be like me sitting here sipping water. Like, who knows? So part of why I want to go through this today is just to make sure people are like aware that it's not always like a dramatic, dark thing. All right, so let's talk about what depression can look like. It absolutely can look like Joe's storyline on Grey's Anatomy, right? Where she just like does not get out of bed for days on end. Anytime her husband or any friend tries to talk to her, she like lashes out and is screaming at them. She can't really hold a coherent conversation. She's abusing alcohol. She's sleeping all the time, doesn't shower, like shows up to work and like can't make mistakes. It totally can look like that. For me, who has like extremely high functioning depression, it's a lot more subtle. So it usually starts for me as just being more tired. And I know like a lot of my friends listening to this have like heard me talking about how tired I am for probably the last month at this point. But I've just been like, I'm just weird. I'm like exhausted. And, it's whatever. We're kind of going from, it's that weird time of year that spring is like not sure if we're just going straight to summer. So part of it is like the weather is so abnormal. It's like freezing one day and burning the next, that like that does affect like my allergies and my energy. So a lot of times it's like, okay, am I abnormally tired because I'm sad, or is it just the weather? Also, the number one thing I hate about being a woman is that you always have to ask yourself, is it my period? It's like, is this a headache or is it my period? Am I tired or is it my period? Do I hate everyone or is it my period? Am I annoyed or is it my period? And so it's kind of like, could also be that. So it's like your period comes and goes and you're still tired or still have headaches. And then it's like, all right, now I can look into that thing. So it really started for me as just being like more tired than usual and just like sleeping more than usual, taking naps, which like I am not a person that naps. I don't like to nap. I like to get my 7 to 8 hours at night and then don't sleep again until the next day. So the fact that I have found myself napping in recent weeks is like a red flag to me. In terms of like where you see Joe on Grey's like does not get out of bed for days on end, I spend more time in bed, but not that much. So usually it's like I will get up and like go to whatever work meeting I have to go to. I'll show up, I'll do the thing, I'll write the report, I'll schedule the next meeting, and then I'm like, all right, I've got 3 hours between like right now and the next meeting that I have to be in. And in those 3 hours, I will like dive back into my bed and be under the covers and just lay there. And so that is like abnormal behavior for me. Like on a regular day, there I would find other things that I can work on, or I would do my part-time job or work on my book, or even just like sit and watch TV to kill time between meetings. But to literally just get back in bed when I like already got like 11 hours of sleep is very like, you're sleeping too much. And then I think the next thing is like eating out too much, or I should say ordering in, because I don't go out like door dashing too often, because I actually love cooking. Like I really, really enjoy cooking, and I try to only order food when I legitimately don't have time to cook. Like Monday nights, I have class at 6:15 and I end work at 6. So usually like I have to leave work early to get to class on time. So usually on Monday nights, I either need to have cooked my dinner the previous day and be eating leftovers, or I order food to be delivered at like 5:30 so I can eat it and then run out the door. That's normal behavior for me, but like it's not normal for me to like just be ordering food every day because I don't feel like cooking. So like I just really have not been able to summon the energy to cook a meal for at least 2 weeks now. So I think like I'd been tired for probably 4 weeks, and then lost interest in cooking about 2 weeks ago. Within the past week, I've just like lost interest in like regular things that I like to do. Like I haven't been doing my Peloton dance cardio. I have not been doing any exercise at all, but typically I hate exercise. Like hating exercise is normal for me. I don't like to sweat. I don't like to move around a whole lot. But I do love the dance cardio classes on Peloton, and I just have not been interested in doing that. I have lost interest in Grey's Anatomy. Like I hated season 15, to the point where like I skipped entire episodes. I was like, I don't want to watch this. I'm bored. Like I don't care. And then I started season 16 and I like skipped the first like 5 episodes of that. And then I was just like, why am I bothering? Like, I don't care. I don't want to watch this anymore. Which, as you guys know, I'm obsessed with Grey's Anatomy. It's become like a personality trait of mine to be watching Grey's Anatomy. So that's a red flag. But I kept going back and forth between like, is this just a bad season? Or have I actually like lost interest in something that I love? And then the other thing is I am like very obsessed with Ariana Grande's new album. And I have not been like dancing when I'll still play it in the background and sing along or hum along, but it has not been like giving me the joy that it's been giving me since the day that it came out. So that's been kind of a big thing. So I'm just kind of like, this is unfortunate and stressful, because it's just a lot harder to get things done. Anything that I have to get done is still relatively easy to do. I think I probably procrastinate more in this space, with work and with school, but I still get everything done when it needs to get done. Like even if I finish it like 5 minutes before the meeting, or like the day before it's due instead of 5 days before it's due, like it's still getting done. It's more just like pushing it off because I spend so much time just like laying in bed or like just staring blankly at the wall. So that's just frustrating. I have not particularly found anything that brings me out of it. It's usually just like something that has to run its course. But over the years, I've been able to feel it coming on, so that when I'm like fully in the like depressive episode, I'm aware of it. Like I think when I was younger, like in middle school and high school, I definitely was not even aware that I was depressed. I remember having a lot of fights with my mom where I would be like, I don't have any friends and nobody loves me and nobody understands me. And she's like, what are you talking about? You have 5 million best friends. Like, you're crazy. And it was just because I was depressed. So I was in a place where I didn't feel like any of my friends cared. And I was just like, I was hypersensitive to anything that went wrong in any of my friendships. And I wasn't able to focus on the positive stuff. But like now I'm aware of that. So even like this morning, I was at an event at school and there were a bunch of people in the room that I know, like my classmates and stuff, and they all acknowledged me. They like waved to me, but they also were all sitting together on the other side of the room and like nobody came and sat with me. And I took that very personally and was like, why are they friends with each other and they don't want to be friends with me? Like, why do they hate me? And then I'm sitting there thinking about the fact that like I was sitting at a 2-person table and there were like 6 of them that walked in together and they sat at a table that seats 6 people. So also they all arrived kind of late, like after the event had already started. And the table they picked was like by the door. So it was like less distracting to the room to like walk through. Whereas I got there early and like got my coffee and got my snacks and got my seat like right up at the front by the speaker. And so like if I mean, I wouldn't show up to an event late, but if I showed up to an event late, I would take the table closest to the door where I walk in so that I don't call any attention to myself. So they very easily could have just been doing that. And like they didn't ignore me, like they weren't rude. Like when the event was over, like I did walk over to see them and like everybody said hi and it was normal. Like I don't feel like they were trying to attack me, but I feel like that's because I'm aware of like the space that I'm in. I know like where my thoughts and my feelings go. And so mostly just like I focus on like the negative aspects of everything. There's stuff going on with like my part-time job is like changing payroll processes or something. And so like I did not get paid on time for the first time. And I've kind of known that it was going to happen. Like the last couple of weeks, I've been telling people like, please pray that this check arrives on time. I have been working with this company for 1.5 years now, and I have never not been paid on time, but I just have a feeling that this month I'm not getting paid on time, and I need that money to pay my taxes. And lo and behold, I did not get paid on time. And I feel like I kind of spoken into existence, but at the same time, it's not really a big deal because I know that they're going to pay me. Like they owe me money and they're going to give it to me. Like the finance team is sorting some stuff out. I don't know how late my check is going to be. But at the same time, it is a part-time job and I don't rely on the income from my part-time job. I just like to have extra cash. So that just kind of is what it is, but it's just also something that I think is important for me to notice. The other thing is I find it very difficult to desire conversing with people. Like I'm pretty much, even though I was like sad that these people at school this morning like didn't come and like sit with me, I was like, if they had, I would have been annoyed and I wouldn't have really engaged in the conversation. There was a pastor that walked up to me before the event started that I really like this guy's awesome, he's so cool. But he had just like walked over to me and kind of just like paused and made this very like had this like knowing expression on his face. And he was like, are you doing all right? And I was like, not really. Like it's kind of, I just woke up sad. Like I'm not feeling great today. And literally you guys, like last night, I think I finished working at like 6. And then I had a volunteer meeting at 7 and I took a nap in between. Like I slept from 6 to 7 and then I was in the meeting from like 7 to 8. And then I immediately got back in bed when the meeting ended at like 8:30 and I did not wake up until 9 o'clock this morning. So it's just like an absurd amount of sleeping. And then when I woke up, I was like, I really don't want to go to this event that I said I was going to go to. And I'm just not feeling it. And then I was debating with myself until it was time to leave, like whether or not I was going to go. And then I was like, you know what? I know that I'm sad and it's not going to help me to just sit in my house with my thoughts all day. So let me at least go like be around people where I have to put on a smile and pretend like I want to be there. So I like splashed some water on my face and my hair and I went to the thing, and I felt like I was doing a really good job of like pretending that I wanted to be there. And I am like upset that this man saw through me so quickly, because when I said like, actually no, like I'm not doing great today, I'm really sad, he's like, yeah, I can tell. And what's funny is I feel like this was just what I was mentioning a couple weeks ago of like, this is what I love. Like I love when I don't have to tell people what's going on. Like I want the people in my life to know me well enough to just notice. But I was so bothered by him noticing, because this man has known me for like 2 months. Like he sees me for 1 hour every Friday morning and with a room full of people. So I feel like he like shouldn't, I don't think, know me that well. But I don't know. I guess it's like a good thing and a bad thing. But so yeah, then I come back home and whatever, and I'm just sitting and like reflecting on the whole thing, and I'm just kind of thinking about how like I am so, the main place that my thoughts go whenever I have a free minute is like, I hate my job, I need a new job. I hate my friends, I need new friends. Nobody loves me, nobody cares about me. Like everything is terrible, the world is ending. And it's just like nothing is ever gonna go right again. And I feel like the benefit of having been in therapy for 8 years is that when I used to like get in this space and have these thoughts, like they take over, and that is how I feel for like 6 consecutive months. And it takes forever to crawl out of it. But now it's like I know that it's coming, and so I'm able to like pause and acknowledge like I don't always hate my job. Like my job is not always terrible. Like there are good days at my job. There are things that I like about it, and it in itself is not a terrible thing, and I don't necessarily need a new job right now today. And I try to like pull back. The thing that I don't do is try to force myself to focus on the positives, because I'm not in the headspace to do that. And so if I were to like look in the mirror and say like, I love my job. My job is great. I never need a new job because I love my job and I love my boss and I love my coworkers and I love what I do. Like that's just not true. And all that's doing is telling myself the opposite of what I feel to be true right now. And it's essentially invalidating my own feelings. Like it's trying to trick my mind into thinking that I'm happy, and that does not work. Like that actually makes things worse for me. So that's why I just like, I acknowledge, I'm like, I feel like I hate my job. I'm feeling like getting out of bed right now is really hard. I'm not excited to go and do what I need to do today. I'm not excited to talk to anyone that I need to talk to. And it's been like this forever, and it's always going to be this way. So like I let myself think all of that, and then I say like, okay, where are the facts and where are the made up things in, you know, all of the feelings that I just dumped out, right? So I'm like, it is not a fact that it's always going to be this way, and it's also not a fact that it's always been this way. The fact that it is currently, today, in this moment, difficult to get out of bed and difficult to do what I need to do, that's a fact. And so I just acknowledge it. I'm like, yeah, it's hard. This isn't what I want to do right now. And like maybe I stare at the wall for 10 more minutes and then I like get up and knock the thing out. I have had a few friends ask like, what can I do to cheer you up? And there's really not a thing. To be honest, like it just has to run its course. For me, you know, I think that there are potentially people who like there is totally something that you can do to pull them out of it. I maintain my regular routine. Like I have a friend that I see once a week, and she and I watch movies or we play video games. We just decided that we're going to watch all the Star Wars movies because we both have only ever seen the first one or the fourth one, however y'all number that nonsense. And so she came over and we watched it and we like laughed the whole time and like had a good time. And then like as soon as she left, I was just back to like it. Like I feel like having her around kind of like paused the spiral, but it doesn't end it. Like it doesn't pull me out of it. So I don't know. Like I think if maybe if we had spent more time together, would it have eventually like could it be put on pause long enough that it goes away? I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's more something that I have to just like feel and something to just kind of know about myself. Yeah, I'm not really sure actually. I guess that would be something to play around with or look into. But I find that really interesting because it's kind of along the lines of even just in a general friendship, like having nothing to do with depression, but along the lines of what makes your friend feel seen and what makes them feel heard and what are you living up to their expectations as a friend. Like I have a friend who says like I want the list, give me the list. And when she says give me the list, she means like she wants me to literally like write down for her like as my friend I expect to hear from you once a week or twice a month or whatever it is. And I expect one of those interactions to be a text, and I expect one of those interactions to be a longer phone call. And when I'm sad, I want you to respond in this way, like this will make me feel better. And I have a really hard time with that because that does not work for me. Like if somebody were to give me that formula and say, here is how to be a good friend and make me feel loved, it would feel inauthentic to me if I was just essentially checking things off their to-do list and then they were telling me good job. Because for me, that feels like having a conversation with myself. Like if I tell you how I'm feeling and then I say, if you say, I hear that you are feeling very tired, a little bit anxious, uninterested in things that you used to love, and that you don't think there's anything that can pull you out of this. I'm sorry to hear you're feeling that way. And then you repeat that exact sentence to me. That's not going to do anything for me because I'm like, yo, I just talked to myself. I can talk to myself without you here. Like, I don't need you to parrot things back to me. But if you had said that sentence on your own without me saying like, here's how I want you to respond to this, then it would be really meaningful to me and it would show me that you were listening to me. But that being said, like, you know, this is a friend that she's like, well, I want that step by step. Like I want to check the things off the list. So I imagine that there are people who go through like any type of mental health thing and they're like, yeah, there totally is stuff that can pull me out of it. Like there are specific things that I would like my friends to say or do that would be helpful. I think for me, the main thing that is helpful is for one, not dismissing it. Like I feel like I have told a lot of people that I am like absurdly tired and like disinterested in things, and they've said like, well, sleep is great, we love sleep, like keep sleeping, like I would love to get 11 hours of sleep. I would much prefer somebody notice like, hey, that's a lot of sleep, like are you doing okay, like, or I think you're sad, like when's your next therapy session? But at the same time, like I've told most of my friends, like, hey, I've been really tired lately. You know, like Cameron's the only person that I explicitly said, like, I'm depressed again. Boo. You know? So I can't like expect people to necessarily know what I mean. I think the other thing is that like when I'm in the like episodes, I screen all my calls. I hate to talk on the phone regardless. But I just like will not answer anyone unless they leave me a message and actually need something. And then I wait until I can like muster up the energy to like have a conversation with them. And it usually takes hours. Like I have to spend hours psyching myself up to call them back and be like, all right, let's like deal with this thing that you need from me, and just like give them all of the energy. And then that conversation takes so much out of me that I am like back on the couch under a blanket also. But I just share all of that so that you guys are aware that like for a lot of people, it's not like dramatic outbursts and crying. It's not like an inability to work or to shower or to show up for your friends. And I hesitate to, I'm trying to figure out the best way to word this. I think that the people that have more subtle symptoms are often the ones that we have to worry about more, because we're not ever really sure how bad it is. And I think that was also like a constant, I don't want to call it an argument, but it's just an interesting conversation that I used to have with the drug addict, was like, which of us is worse here? Because it's like he had this like outward physical abuse problem that was very like once I got to know him and I understood like the nuances, I was like, okay, this dude is shit-faced all the time. Awesome. But it was also like he would just like he can walk up to you and be like, I am an alcoholic. Like he's very aware. The people in his lives are very aware. He's like very open about himself. So it's very different, where he would always say, he's like, I think you're sadder than me. Like we would talk about depression and he'd be like, yeah, I'm depressed. That's why I'm drunk all the time. Like I hate the world that we live in. But he's like, but you, Samantha, are sitting here like you hate the world that we live in and you're depressed, but you're running around smiling and hugging people and like acting like everything is fine. Like which of us is more likely to just disappear one day because no one checked on us, right? Where it's like, because I know that he has addiction problems, like I check on him constantly. I'm sure it annoys him, but I am literally just like, hey, you alive? Hey, you alive? Hey, you alive? And no one's asking me if I'm alive. I'm not asking you guys to ask if I'm alive. But I do think that's interesting. And I think it's because we expect people's struggles to look a certain way. And if it doesn't look the way that you're expecting it to look, then you're assuming that the problem isn't there or that it's not bad. So I just throw that out there so that you guys think about it. Moving into the hard conversation of the week. Okay, this is actually the hard conversation of last week because I didn't have one this week. But so last week is when I was handling the fallout of my birthday trip that was equal parts perfect and terrible, depending on who on the trip you're talking to. So basically I told you guys that like some people came on the trip and like spent no time with me and I did not see them at all. What I find really interesting is everybody that I tell this story to is immediately like, I'm sorry, somebody did what to you? Somebody seriously agreed to go on your birthday trip and then spent no time with you? Like, what the fuck? Like, I'm so sorry. Like, that's so rude. And this has like overwhelmingly been people's response. But the people that did it don't think it was rude. And I just find it interesting. And I got the opportunity to have like a long conversation with one of them about it. And by the end of the conversation, my understanding was that she thinks it was all like a big misunderstanding. Like it was not clear to her like what was important to me or what the expectation was. I thought that it was, what is the word? I felt like by saying to a group of people, do you want to come to Disney and celebrate my birthday with me? I thought that by them agreeing to go on the trip, it was mutually understood that we were going to go on the trip and all be together at Disney for the duration of the trip. Like, I thought that was all implied by the question of, I'm going to Disney for my birthday, do you want to come? But they needed like way more detailed information. Like, they needed to hear me specifically say to them one-on-one, like, will you please come to the Disneyland park and spend the entire day with me? I would like to have breakfast at this time at this place. Here is the list of rides that I would like to ride. Here is the schedule of when I plan to get on each ride throughout the day. Please stand by my side the whole time and come on the ride with me, unless it's, going to make you sick or whatever, then wait or do something else and then let's meet up after. I thought all of that was like implied and understood, and it wasn't. So there were a few things that I learned during this conversation. The first thing was that I do not necessarily communicate as clearly as I think I do. I pride myself on being a clear communicator. I am very careful with my words. I think that I listen well to others. I try to consider all sides of an argument, all opinions that may be included in something when making a decision. And I feel like I am very good at articulating my emotions. So when I am talking and somebody repeats back to me what they heard, and it is something that is so absurdly different than what I said, that is very frustrating to me. Like, it makes me sad, and it makes me sad because I feel like I went out of my way to be clear and I failed. Or it makes me angry because I feel like this person clearly didn't listen to me. And so, like, both of these people had told me that, like, they felt like the podcast episode that I released before the trip was attacking them. Like, they felt like it was wrong of me to record and wrong of me to publish, and that I spent the whole hour attacking them. And I was sitting there like, I spent an hour talking about friendship and posing the question, like, at what point in a friendship do you know that it's no longer worth pursuing? Like, how do you get to a point where you understand whether or not you're supposed to keep fighting or whether or not it's not worth it? And then toward the end of the episode, I used some specific examples from the trip that had to do with the two of you, which I did go back and listen again and clocked it. And I was like, I spent 8 minutes referring to examples that included you, and you told me that I spent an hour attacking you. So I'm trying to look at this as like, okay, I understand where they weren't expecting to hear a story about them. And the fact that they did, that's the thing that they focused on. That's the thing that they blew up. And it made their memory of the episode condense those 8 minutes into the entire hour. And I even said this to one of the girls when we were having the conversation about the trip, is I said, you know what? I think that we need to both pull back here because, like, first of all, we were going back and forth. We were going to get on the phone and then we weren't free at the same time. So we ended up sending each other voice notes back and forth all day. And it was so exhausting. Like, I have never been made more tired by a conversation. And it was mostly because we both just kept like repeating ourselves over and over and over again. And sometimes like I would say something and she would respond and I could tell that she was angry with me. And then I'm sitting there like, why is she pissed off about what I just said? Like, I'm literally just talking about my thoughts and feelings. Why is it making her so angry? But then she would say something and I would get angry because I am like, how are you so far off base? And it would be something simple like I told her, I was like, hey, so another one of the girls told me that like you and this other girl were bothered by the fact that we didn't text you guys enough and we didn't invite you to do more things. That confuses me because the fact that you were invited on the trip to begin with, like the fact that you were even on the trip, that was you being invited to everything. You were invited to all of the meals, the whole day, 2 days at Disney, everything. Like I invited you on the trip. That was your invite to everything. You declined coming to breakfast because of the time, which I said in the group chat, when you said you were not getting up and come to breakfast, I said, okay, we're going to go to breakfast and then we're going to go to the park, those of us that are going to breakfast. So I said, if you guys aren't going to wake up until noon, 1 p.m., whenever you get to the park, let me know that you have arrived and I will let you know where to find me. Like I had that conversation. I don't know how to be more clear. And they did. Like they got in the park and they texted us and they said like, hey, we're here. Where are you? And I said, we're in line for Rise of the Resistance. And they didn't want to join us. They were not comfortable with walking through the line to come and find us. And so when I was having this conversation with her about that, she had explained that like in their culture, it's rude to skip lines. And this was their first ever time at Disney. So they didn't know that people do that at Disney all the time. Even though I was like, okay, but we did tell you that in the group chat too. Like when you said, oh, the line's really long. Like, isn't that rude to walk through people? We said, no, people do that all the time. It's Disney. Like kids have to pee. There are people that have like disabilities where they can't wait in line that long. There's like the whole rider switch thing that parents can do. Like, you can always have somebody mark your place in line while you go do whatever. And then you just say, excuse me, my friends are up there. And you like, we did give them that information. So I don't know if that message just didn't go through or wasn't received or they didn't listen to the voice note or whatever. But either way, I was, to her, it was like not clear. Like they didn't clearly communicate to us the full extent of like why they weren't comfortable going through the line. And I was like, all right, sure. But then after we got out, I said, all right, well, when we get off this ride, we're going to get on this ride and then we're going to get a snack and then we're going to go to Adventureland and get on this ride. And like, y'all just never responded and never joined in. And she essentially said that it was because I was just giving a play-by-play of what we were doing and I never said the explicit words of please come meet me in Adventureland at 2 p.m. I really want to ride this ride with you. Where I'm just like, I thought that was implied by the fact that I said, now I'm in line for this ride. Now I'm in this place eating a snack. Now I'm sitting here waiting for the parade. I'm like, why would I tell you where I am if I didn't expect you to join me? Like, why the hell are you here? Why are you on the trip if you're not going to spend time with me? Why did you come? It is my birthday. I am celebrating my birthday by being at Disney. What do you do at Disney? You ride rides and you eat snacks and you watch parades. Like, that's it. So I'm just like, I don't understand how it was unclear to you that I wanted you to be with me because you were on the trip. Like, if I didn't want you on the trip, I literally would have uninvited you. And she basically said that, like, they felt like since I was so upset that they weren't going to wake up and come to breakfast, that I didn't want them around for anything else. And I was like, clearly, again, y'all don't know me that well, because if I were so petty that you not coming to breakfast made me not want you on the trip, I would have taken you off the trip. I would have contacted the travel agent. I would have said, remove room number 3. Those girls are no longer invited. And I would have refunded you. And that would have been that. Like, you wouldn't have come. So I'm like, the fact that I did not do that, and I literally was like, all right, you're not coming to breakfast. Like, see you in the park. So either way, like, whether you chalk it up to misunderstandings or not, like, I feel like at the end of the day, we still don't agree. Like, she still thinks I was in the wrong. I still think they were in the wrong. And I still think it was rude. Like, they still think my podcast was rude. And I disagree. I don't think my podcast was rude. I don't think it was attacking them. I don't regret it. They might think this podcast is attacking them, which I also don't think is the case. So it's one of those things where all I can control is what I say and what I do. And I cannot control how somebody else receives what I say. And so I feel like part of what made this conversation so difficult is that I did really hear like the hurt in her voice, that she was like very offended by my podcast. She was very upset about how the trip went. And I was like, even though I did not intend to hurt you with my podcast, and I did not intend for us to not spend any time on the trip together, like I was not intentionally excluding you. I felt like I was trying to include you and you were rejecting me. And even when you came to dinner, it was like very awkward and uncomfortable. I didn't want it to be that way. I wasn't trying to make it that way. And the fact that you felt like I didn't want you there, that's sad to me. Like, that's unfortunate. And I think that regardless of what my intent is, like if I hurt somebody, I want to take responsibility for that, and I want to apologize for it. And it's difficult because something like with the podcast episode, like I went back and I listened to it again and I was like, I'm really proud of that episode. Like, I think that I articulated things really well. I think I was very clear. I love how it turned out. I appreciated the message. I thought the examples supported the message very well. So I was like, how do I apologize to her in a way that she's gonna receive the apology appropriately? Because I think that I'm sorry you feel that way is not an apology, right? So I said, like, I am sorry that I said something on my podcast that hurt you, right? Because that's true. That is me taking responsibility for saying something that hurt her. I did not apologize for publishing the podcast or specifically for what was said or how I said it, because I don't take issue with that. Like, I would not change anything about that episode. I can't control how she felt hearing it. And obviously, like, we can't go back and do the trip again. Like, I don't think we would. But basically it just was really, really, even at the end of the conversation, like it just felt very heavy and sad. Another thing that I learned during the conversation is, like, she had mentioned to me that, like, conversations that we had, because I was telling her about how, like, I sort of have been feeling like these friendships have run their course within the past year and a half. And I had told you and the other girl this as well. Like, I had shared with you, I think a year ago, that, like, I kind of feel like we don't need this group chat anymore. I kind of feel like our friendships have run their course. Like, are you guys feeling this too? Is it just me? And they were both like, no, we're not feeling that at all. Like, we're totally still friends. Like, what are you talking about? And so she and I, like, talked more deeply about that. And she had mentioned that, like, the group chat was like a safe place for her to be really vulnerable in a way that she is not vulnerable in any other spaces. And that really, really hit me as, like, very significant, because I was like, oh, and it was significant to me because for a couple reasons. I guess the first reason is that of the three people in the chat, like, this person was the least active in it. So I kind of viewed the fact that she was least active in it was that it was least meaningful to her, but it was actually most meaningful to her, because when she was active in it, she was, like, really sharing things that she didn't feel comfortable sharing anywhere else. And I was not aware of that, because while I was probably the most active in the chat, like, sharing the most, that was not the only place that I shared it. Like, as you guys know, I am an open book. I will tell my entire life story to a complete stranger. I don't really have secrets. And when I'm going through something, like, I share it in multiple places to multiple friends. And I'm kind of just like, if I'm sending a really long voice note, if you are receiving a really long voice note from me, you should assume that I have sent a similar voice note to at least 6 other people. And it's not because I don't love you or appreciate you. It's because I value multiple opinions. Like I like to discuss things from multiple angles and get a lot of different ideas in there. So I'm never going to only go to one friend to talk things through, because then I'm only getting that one friend's view and my own, where I want to make sure that I'm getting like a well-rounded view. But it's also because I have multiple friends that I feel safe to share things with. But I think I also, like, I don't really need, I don't need like a particular environment to share things. Like, I very much am an open book, and there's not a whole lot that goes on in my life that I'm unwilling to share with people. So just to hear that, like, I was a part of this group chat that was like the only place that somebody went to share things in, it's like clearly it was a much more important place to this person than it was to me. And I partially look at, if I look at this whole thing of like, God removing people from your life, it's like maybe God was removing me, or not necessarily removing me, but having me take a giant step back from her life, because maybe God was seeing like, hey, this is way more important to you than it is to Samantha. Like, let me have her take a step back so that there's somebody else in your life that I'm going to have take a step up, who, when you're being vulnerable with them, they're being vulnerable with you, and you're both only being that vulnerable with each other because that's something that's important to you. Whereas like Samantha's out here being vulnerable with the whole world. So like she's gonna, it's carrying less weight when something like that is happening. So I thought that was like a very interesting learning that I felt really bad about. And then I think the other thing is just that, like, I didn't feel sad in the way that I think I should feel after being friends with someone so long and having something that felt really minute turn into like such a crazy thing. I'm like the fact that like we spent the entire day talking about our feelings over this trip, like it's just so unimportant to me. I'm like, it's not like I ran over your dog, or it's not like you confided a deep dark secret in me and that's what I shared on my podcast to the world, and you were like, hey, I don't know if we can still be friends. Like, I just feel like the trip stuff is just so unimportant in comparison to something that could end a friendship. And that just makes me feel like the friendships like weren't strong to begin with, and that kind of makes me sad. The other girl and I like barely had a conversation. So like this was the one that I told you guys that like I had reached out to and had said like, let's talk about this. And she said, I don't want to talk about this. We're about to go on the trip. I want to keep it light and fun and happy, and we can talk about it after the trip. And so I told her, like, I respect that, but I would like you to know that because you're making this decision to not talk until after the trip, like, my mind is going to write stories in the meantime. I'm going to stress about this and think about this until we have the conversation. And because you have said to me, let's just keep it light, fun, and happy, and I think this is going to be a harder conversation, that's making me feel like you don't want to be friends with me. And, like, if that's the case, I'd rather you say it now and not come on the trip. And lo and behold, like the trip ends. I gave her like a week and a half, didn't hear from her. And so I reached out just to say like, hey, you said you wanted to talk about this after the trip. And since I haven't heard from you, I assume that you no longer want to discuss it. However, I'm trying to stop making assumptions and just be direct with people. So I'm giving you the opportunity. If you want to talk about it, I'm here to listen. If you don't want to talk about it, I'm cool to not talk about it. And if you never want to speak again, that's also cool with me. And she basically just responded and said, like, thanks for reaching out. Yeah, I think it's best that we just let this friendship go. And I just like, I was annoyed by it, but I couldn't figure out why. And I was trying to figure out like, why did that annoy me? Because it didn't make me sad. And then I sat here for days, like processing both of the conversations. And I was just kind of thinking like, what did I want to happen? You know, like, did I want these girls to like fall all over themselves and be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that I was the shittiest friend ever on your birthday. Please forgive me. I never shut it on that I was totally wrong. Like, is that what I wanted? I don't think that's what I wanted. I don't think I would have been receptive to that. You know, so then I wonder, like, did I want them to double down and say, like, you're a terrible friend, Samantha, and you're awful, and, like, we did everything right, and nothing that we did was shitty, and you were shitty, and, you know, because then I would have been, like, if they had doubled down, I think I would have felt more, I guess, vindicated in, like, the friendships ending up where they are now. So I'm not really sure. It just kind of felt, I don't know, it just kind of felt like what was the point, you know? And I think that's also just part of like the like depressive episode that I'm getting ready to have, is just feeling like everything is pointless and everything is meaningless. And that's just the all or nothing thinking that I have. That's like, if something this stupid could end our friendship, then that means our friendship was never strong to begin with. And we never should have been friends. And it was a complete waste of our time. And none of that's true. You know, it's like, I think that we were very good friends for a number of years. And I think that we all had a purpose to serve in each other's lives. And I think that we served that. And I think that those seasons are over. And we're all now in new seasons. And will we be friends again one day? I don't know. Will we ever speak again? I don't know. But I'm not like, I'm not sad about the fact that we're not actively friends right now or actively close right now. Like I don't have any like negative, I don't have ill will toward either of them. I'm not upset with them. I'm not angry with them. I don't wish harm on either of them. Like I think they're both great people that I love. You know, I'm just not like, you're not people I'm going to call if I'm sad. I'm sure I'm not a person that you're going to call if you're sad. And it's just kind of like, it is what it is. But it's still, I think it's confusing because there's still a loss there that like your heart and your mind have to process through. And maybe that's what I'm confused about. It almost feels like ending a situationship, right? Where it's like, oh, that wasn't my boyfriend. And because he wasn't my boyfriend, I can't be sad that he's not in my life anymore. But I felt like he was my boyfriend. And so I'm still emotionally mourning a breakup, even though I can't call it a breakup. It's kind of like that. It's like, this wasn't your best friend, but it still was a friend. And it was somebody that you used to, whether the conversations were deep or not, like if it's somebody that you spent a significant amount of time talking to that now you don't, like there's still a loss there to process. So that was the hard conversations of last week. Hopefully I can go a few weeks without a hard conversation. But we'll see. For the movie or TV recommendation this week, I don't really, I still recommend Grey's Anatomy. Season 14 was a dream. Loved season 14 so much. Hated season 15, and so far I'm very bored season 16, but I think that's because I'm depressed. So I'm pausing on watching it for a while to see if I get interested in it again when this like mental health situation is over. But so I did watch the first Star Wars, episode 4, A New Hope. Is that how, do we have to title them in episodes? Episode 4 is the first movie you're supposed to watch. Didn't like it. Sorry. I was very bored. I was very confused. I feel like the first like 20 minutes of the movie is only like robots talking and like beep booping at each other. And I was like, when is like a human gonna speak a language that I'm familiar with? I couldn't figure out. I was like, what is Princess Leia princess of, like, who's in charge here? Like, do each of the planets have their own person in charge? Is there like a person in charge of space in general? I was like, is there a story here and I'm just missing it? Also, apparently, Luke and Han Solo are like super hot. I'm not attracted to either of them. So, my friend Sophie, that I was watching this with, we were debating, like, okay, so imagine like if early 2000s mushroom cut Zac Efron played Luke in this movie, who would be Han Solo? And we decided it would be Ryan Reynolds because he's give or take 15 years older than Zach. And Luke is supposed to be 19 and Han Solo is supposed to be 32, 33 in the first one. So give or take 15 years. And we were like, that could work. So I just like inserted them in the movie in my head and that made it more fun. Also, as you guys know, I love new things and not old things, and the effects are so bad. Like, so bad. So that was kind of a struggle, but we're going to power through. We're planning to watch all the Star Wars. This is my first time ever watching Star Wars. I gave it 2.5 stars on Letterboxd because I was like, it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't good. It was a movie. It was average. It did its job. It had a beginning, middle, and end, I think, and I just couldn't follow the story or wasn't interested enough to pay attention. But I will watch the rest of them, and then we're going to watch Lord of the Rings for the first time, and I'll let you guys know how I'm feeling about that. But as always, if anybody has questions, comments, concerns, stuff they want to discuss, write me at realhonestpod@gmail.com. Okay, bye. I'm not here to sugarcoat, life's already a bumpy road. Too much shelter causes pain, let's just be real honest. Things are gonna knock you down, avoidance will not help you out. Let's talk it through here, keep it real.